Well, I just finished watching Ju-on Origins, so let's talk about it. I had nothing better to do for my 4th of July, so I figured why not binge watch this horror series on Netflix, this J horror series that I'm actually surprised came out on American Netflix, considering this is a Japanese horror series, but I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. We do get a lot of anime that comes out on Netflix. And we do get a lot of also foreign TV series that come out on Netflix as well. So I guess I shouldn't be too surprised that we're getting a Ju-on series, which for those of you who don't know, Ju-on is the original the original Grudge. The American Grudge, obviously, it's based on Ju-on the Grudge, which was a Japanese horror movie. Same with The Ring, which was based on Ringu, which is a Japanese horror movie. Ju-on the Grudge, however, in Japan, or Ju-on, has many different movies there are many different movies in the Ju-on series. There's Ju-on the Curse, Ju-on the Grudge, Ju-on White Ghost, Black Ghost. There's all these different Ju-on movies, and there's even movies that take place before Ju-on that are technically, I guess, in the same universe as Ju-on. It's really confusing. And then there's a bunch of other movies that are related to it. So this is supposedly a prequel series to Ju-on, the Ju-on movies and Ju-on the Grudge. So that definitely caught my interest. I didn't even know about this series until just recently, and I saw like a trailer for it. I didn't even know it was happening. So I was really excited when I heard about it because I am a fan of the Ju-on movies. I actually haven't seen the American Grudge, and I'm definitely not going to see the most recent one that came out, which I heard was a dumpster fire. Although I might review that if people in the comments actually want to see me suffer and want to see me just rip the film a new asshole, because I probably will do that, because based on the trailers it looked like a dumpster fire. However, enough rambling. So Ju-on Origins, it's a prequel series, like I said, to Ju-on, the Ju-on series of movies, and it basically kind of expands on the lore about the house that we see in the other Ju-on movies and the other different tragedies and horrific things that happen in this house. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to come out and say, for people who are expecting to see Kayako, I think her name is, Kayako and Toshio, I think was the boy's name, Kayako and Toshio are not in this series, which I think might be a really big deal breaker for some people, but I really do think that you should stick around and watch it regardless. There are different ghosts that do, like, reoccurring ghosts in this series. There's a ghost lady holding like what looks like a baby, like cradling a baby in her arms, and then there is there's a ghost of a man with a butcher knife. There is a who really doesn't show up until the very end of the series, and then there are some other really weird things that aren't, I don't know if I'd say they're ghosts, but they're it's weird, and I really don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it, but let's just get into it. So the series features multiple different characters, and we follow various different characters, and I feel like this is really kind of a detriment to the series, because I feel like it mostly should have just followed one or two characters and not multiple different ones, because we start following these different characters and you're wondering like what happens to each one of them. For a while it follows one character's story, then it starts following another character's story and what relation they have to the house and what happened to them in the house, and then it follows somebody else and what happened to them in the house. But however, the one of the more consistent characters in the series is the main character, who's this like kind of this bald guy who's like, I think he's a writer or something, and he's writing about the house. So you follow him and his investigation into the house, and you also follow this other woman who something really terrible happened to her in this house. I will go ahead and spoil one thing. There is a rape scene in this series, and while I'm not really one to give like trigger warnings and all that kind of bullshit, I will say if you find stuff like that uncomfortable or hard to watch, you might not really like this series. That's another thing I need to mention. There is a lot of gore in this, and I know there's a lot of gore in the other Ju-on movies, but this series, it does not hold back with anything. There's a lot of sex, there's a lot of gore, it doesn't hold back with anything, and that's one of the things I like. But there are just some really uncomfortable scenes. Like there's a rape scene, like, you know, one of the characters who's this woman who was raped in the house. She of course has that traumatic experience of her being raped, and strangely enough, so after this happens, she has her rapist, like, and I was thinking like she was doing this to kind of get back on these other girls who basically got this dude to rape her in this house. I thought it was like some twisted way at her getting back at them by starting to go out with the dude that actually raped her. I thought that maybe she had some kind of scheme where she was going to try to do something, but nope. So she has the dude kill her mother because her mother is a piece of shit. She's not a good person. That's another thing I should also mention. Most of these characters are terrible people. Well, not most of them, but there are quite a few characters in this who are just fucking horrible people. Like there's a woman that cheats on her husband while she's pregnant with another man, the man she's cheating on her husband with his child, and the husband thinks it's his child, and of course, you know, when she reveals, hey, this is his child, of course the husband, he seems okay with it at first, and then of course he's not okay with it, obviously, as most people shouldn't be, because it's a terrible fucking thing to do to somebody, and I have no sympathy for whatever happens to you afterwards. So when the thing that does happen to her inevitably, and I think you all know what I'm getting at here, when it does happen, you don't really feel much sympathy for her. But this is one of this scene which I'm referring to is one of the most fucked up, like horrific scenes in this series, and it's probably the best thing in the show, in the whole, like one of the most fucked up, disturbing parts of the whole series. And I will also say, I guess it's not really much of a spoiler. So one of the, I guess, quote unquote ghosts is a weird fetus thing that shows up and kind of crawls over one of the characters, and it's really fucking creepy. Like there's one part where he just, you know, there's a fetus that gets ripped out of, well, I'll just spoil it. There's a fetus that gets ripped out of this woman's stomach. Like he does a C-section, like and on her belly, and pulls the baby out. And that part was fucking hard to watch. Like it was fucking brutal and graphic, and it was great, but it's that's one of the best scenes in this series, and I really liked it. But there's not a lot of other scenes like that. The show is kind of a slow burn at first. There are some scares here and there, but then there's also a lot of these scenes where it's kind of building up these characters and kind of going into their backstories and their relation to the house. And at some points, it just feels like this really fucked up kind of tragedy where all these characters just have terrible things happen to them, and they just happen to be sort of related to the Ju-on house. So the main character, you know, of course, it eventually it all kind of culminates and comes back to the Ju-on house, to where all these characters end up. And I will be honest, the series kind of left me confused at some points as to like what in the hell is actually going on. Like I got the gist of what was happening at some points, but it feels like this is probably one of those series that you really kind of need to go back and like rewatch in order to completely understand like what happened, specifically near like the end of the series. I was kind of left in the dark about, somewhat about like what was going on and what relation certain scenes like had to each other, because there's these, and I think I do remember things like this like might have happened in the original movie, where things that happen in the house and things that happened in the house in the past and things that happened that are currently like happening in the house like kind of interconnect, or you know, connect with one another in certain ways. At least I kind of felt that way, like present events somehow are like kind of go back and affect some things that happened in the house in the past. At least that's how, like, the way the scenes were presented, that's at least at the end of the series, that's kind of how it felt. And then there's a scene where a dude literally just disappears, and I don't know. I don't know if I'd say that's a spoiler, because I won't say what character does, but a character just disappears at one point. And I'm not really sure why. I could have missed something. There's a lot of stuff I could have missed, but I don't know what the fuck just happened. Like he literally, it's like lightning struck him, and then he's just gone. Like it disappears into thin air, and he never comes back. So that was weird. There's a lot of other weird things that happen at the very end that I'm not exactly sure what to make of, and I don't know what significance some of these scenes had. I'm not really one of those people that wants everything to kind of be fed to him, like, you know, everything needs to be, there needs to be all this exposition and everything. I don't want that, but at the same time, I really feel like a story should at least try to make some sort of sense. And at the end, it felt like kind of, it was like a confused mess, sort of, and I wasn't really, I couldn't make heads or tails of what exactly I was watching. So by the end of it, I was just like, what the hell did I just watch? And the way it ends is also just like, okay, I don't know what to take away from that. A certain character, won't name names, just gets killed or something happens to them, and the end. So yeah, it was weird, and I would say, yeah, it does sort of connect to Ju-on in some ways, but I don't know, it's almost like we don't really get a lot of fan service for people, except maybe for ghosts making weird cat-like noises, and you know, the kind of like gurgle, like, you know, somebody doing the weird throat noises that you hear from like Kayako when her ghost shows up. We don't really get any tease of their ghosts or anything like that, or anything that could connect to the other Ju-on movies at the end. And I was kind of disappointed with that. There are, like I said, there are some things like the, you know, just the stuff that people who are fans of the movies would be familiar with, like the cat noises and the noises that Kayako makes. But other than that, it just feels like it's almost like kind of a different, like not exactly connected to it, other than, you know, just a house as well. So, did I enjoy it? Yeah. But plot-wise, at times the series feels, like I said, kind of like a mess, and it's hard to really make sense of some things that happen in the series. The scares are good, the ghosts look creepy as hell at points, and then there is one scene in particular in the series that really is fucked up. And I would say, in episode 4 specifically, I would say if you were to watch the series, like, watch it for that. Like, that was, or just maybe find the scene on YouTube, if YouTube even would fucking allow something like that. But that scene is fucking insane, and it's one of the reasons why I really like J-horror. J-horror sometimes does not hold back on certain things. It really just does not give a fuck, and it will show whatever, you know, and that's what I really like about it. So, in the end, I'm just not sure. If I were to give this a rating, I almost want to say this is kind of a 6 out of 10. I really want to give it a 7, but I'm really just going to have to give it a 6, mainly because the plot, like I said, at some points it kind of drags. Certain characters feel like they're kind of forgotten about, and then they come up again. And then there are some things that I just don't really feel have like a proper resolution. And some things are just feel really confusing. So it's like really hard for me to give it a higher rating than that. I really want to, because in terms of its horror, it's really good. Like, it does feel like a Ju-on movie or any other J-horror movie you've seen. But in terms of the plot, at some points, like I said, feels like a mess. Some things I could make sense of, some things I'm just like, I'm not sure what the hell's happening here, and I'm not sure what relation this has to that, or what this is doing here, why these people are here, who this is, what significance they have, stuff like that. So, but I will say this is a really easy binge watch, because each episode is around like 20, maybe around 30 minutes long, whereas usually with a lot of TV shows or shows on Netflix, each episode is like 40 some odd minutes long. So it did engage me. You know, if an episode is that long, I really have to be engaged with the content in order for me to keep watching it. But with this show, at least the episodes were short enough for, you know, for you to easily binge watch the show, and it's only 6 episodes. So even if you don't like it, you know, you wouldn't have wasted a lot of your time having seen this. You could watch this in like an afternoon or something. So yeah, I would recommend it, but I would say don't, you know, go in with maybe sort of reasonable, not low expectations, just, you know, just kind of not really high expectations, thinking this is going to be like a really huge, you know, just really similar to the earlier Ju-on movies, I guess, when they were good, because apparently as Ju-on went on, it started to get a little bit mediocre, as is with a lot of horror movie franchises, supposedly, you know, with a lot of other horror movie franchises. So But anyways, let me know what you guys think of this series. If you've seen it, what do you think? And if maybe you plan to see it, if you're a fan of Ju-on, or if you have been interested in watching the Ju-on movies and maybe you want to check this out. Is this, I guess I should answer another question. Is this a good place to start if you have not seen the Ju-on movies? Yeah, because it really feels in a lot of ways not necessarily all that connected to Ju-on, so you should be fine. However, I would say maybe just watch the original first, just to get a good sense of, you know, what Ju-on is like or what it should be like, just maybe as like a basis for comparison, and then watch the series. But it doesn't matter which way you, in which order you really want to watch it. So, yeah, I guess until next time, I will see you all later.